Welcome back to the Land Bulletin Podcast, where every other week we bring you experts in the field to impart their knowledge when it comes to the ranch and sporting property market, buying and selling advice, the latest best stewardship practices, as well as topics that impact landowners every day. I'm your host, Haley Murr. Let's jump in. Welcome back to our Land Bulletin series. I'm Haley Murr, and today we're having a very special conversation. We're talking to a company called Rarewaters. They help generate income for private landowners with river access, and their main mission is to spread the power of the outdoors and inspiration to conserve it. It's a really cool company. One of our ranchers has actually worked with them before, and helping me out today is Andy Dunn, the head of partnerships at Rarewaters. So welcome, Andy, to the show today.
Perfect. Thanks for having me, Haley. Appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, before we get started in what Rarewaters is, what it can do for landowners, how did you get involved in this company?
Yeah, so I've been in the fly fishing space for, most of my adult professional life. I initially started off in a local Colorado kind of fly fishing mecca, as it were, but Anglers All Fly Shop came on board. It's in Littleton, Colorado. I was a retail buyer for the sales floor for a number of years, and then went from there I ran North American Dealer Services for Fish Pond, who is a manufacturer for fly fishing specific gear. And then
I love the Kurtzes.
Yeah. So I worked for the Kurtz family and Johnny LeCoq for a number of years and helped grow their dealer side of the business for a handful of years, and then was approached by Rarewaters as they were looking to expand. They knew the relationships that I had built within the fly fishing space over a number of years, and so they asked me to come on board, and was pretty excited to do so, just knowing what other examples have been done kind of in the Airbnb, VRBO space, but not really done on the fly fishing experience side. So to try something new and really tickle the entrepreneurial bug that I have has been really exciting.
Awesome. Well, you kind of mentioned Airbnb and things like that. For those listening, what is Rarewaters? And what does it do not only for the landowner, but then the fishermen themselves?
Yeah. So starting off on the landowner perspective, we partner with landowners that have a minimum of a half mile of access to a river, creek, lakes, ponds, those kind of things. But what we do is we provide the marketing, photography, drone footage. A big part that we provide for landowners is insurance. And then we provide unique individual listing pages for anglers across the Western U.S. to access. And so we charge a listing fee for anglers to be able to choose a day, select the water. If the day is available, then they're able to select that day, and then they pay for the access. And we provide maps for anglers to get there. So from a landowner's perspective, we've already done all the upfront work in the onboarding process with a landowner, and literally once they agree to partner with Rarewaters, everything else is taken care of. Kind of a huge thing that we're really, really proud of. In the 5+ years that we've been in business, we've only ever had like 4 issues where people have been confused or had an issue with a property. And because of the responsiveness of our customer care team, the landowner really, once they're partnered with Rarewaters, is hands off, other than updating us on any new things, whether they've done some improvements, whether they want to add camping. Those kind of things are pretty straightforward on both sides, from the angler perspective and the landowner.
That's awesome. So beyond kind of like the river frontage mileage, are there any other things that like the landowner needs to have in order to be a good candidate for something like this?
Yeah. So yeah, absolutely. Besides, we did a lot of market research when we were really hitting the ball rolling. And though fishing is absolutely part of why anglers choose to use Rarewaters properties, but scenery and solitude are actually the number 1 and number 2 reasons why anglers choose to access the Rarewaters platform. We all want to catch fish as anglers, but most of us are doing it instead of clicking a number to see how many we caught for the day. Most of us are trying to get away from the day to day. And from the angler perspective, the day to day can be pretty hectic when you're trying to find access on public water. And so by
Oh yeah.
using the Rarewaters platform, because we limit the amount of anglers that are allowed on each section of water, you know that you're going to get an experience with the people you want to experience it with, or honestly by yourself. Because a lot of anglers choose to get away from everything, their busy office life, their busy family, whatever it may be. Everybody's looking to escape from something for at least a moment.
It seems like Rare Water was created based on a need. Did you see this need as a fisherman? Where was this mostly seen? Especially, I know as public lands become more and more popular, but
Yeah, so Brendan Stuckey, the founder of Rarewaters, came from that corporate life kind of thing, and he was experienced, limited time kind of thing, and he would try to access those public sections. We did actually a social post that we filmed of Deckers, which for some of your audience may know, but it is probably one of the most highly sought after fishery in possibly North America from angler count perspective. And so we filmed this video of all these anglers on the water, but this is what was in Brendan's mind when he founded Rarewaters is like, I only have X amount of time. I want to just get away from that. How do I do that? And so from like a selfish need, selfish desire that Brendan may have had, ultimately turned into a business. So escaping the crowds and creating a inclusive area for anglers to do that was really what Brendan sought to do when founding Rarewaters.
okay, I love that. And I mean, we talked about your mission statement about spreading the power of the outdoors and inspiration to conserve.
Yeah.
At Burr Ranch Group, conservation is big for us. What is Rare Waters doing from a conservation perspective when it comes to waterways, habitat, fisheries, that kind of thing?
Sure. Yeah. Well, if the water is not there for us, we won't be a business. So, I mean,
Right.
it's really important that we conserve it. From a landowner's perspective specifically, a lot of the people that we partner with, a lot of the ranches that we partner with, never knew that there was an actual value in the waters that we're running through, other than watering their cattle or watering their hayfields. Because they've never had time to fish themselves. They've had friends that have come onto their property and fished it, but they didn't know that there was a value to it. And so by partnering with Rarewaters, you kind of automatically open the door to the conservation side. We're a big supporter of Rarewaters. We also work with the Conservation Alliance and other organizations. We work with habitat restoration groups if a landowner chooses to improve their watershed. One kind of cool thing when a landowner does choose to conserve and work on restoration work on their properties, it affects everybody, which I think a lot of the public land advocates don't realize of how much effort finance-wise and time-wise that an actual landowner puts into conserving their property. Because honestly, water doesn't care if it's public or it's private, and it's always
Right.
going to keep flowing. And so to be able to open the doors for landowners to conservation organizations that are specifically focused on fishing is part of like the partnership that I get to run within Rarewaters.
No, I love that. And it's true too. It's sometimes certain ranchers, especially if they've owned them for generations, don't know the resources at their disposal for those types of projects. So it's really neat to see that Rare Waters connects ranchers with some of these organizations that might not only provide conservation to the river themselves, but might help just their operation in general. Because if you're protecting the river and the river fishing ways that go through your property, you're protecting kind of your operation
Yeah,
in general.
100%. I mean, a prime example, we are partnered with a landowner that basically is on the border of Wyoming and Colorado. They own Battle Creek, and they own sections of the Little Snake, and they own and operate all the grazing rights on the Battle Creek watershed. And speaking of conservation, they have basically fenced and kept livestock out of the area along the river. And what even during high water that we're experiencing right now in Colorado and most of the Western US, because they have fenced off the waterway and conserved the habitat, the riparian habitat within that zone, that watershed actually runs clear because of lack of stream degradation that a lot of livestock will do within a watershed. And to be honest with you, the fishery itself has done nothing but benefit. I fished this property, and it is pretty darn special from an angler perspective.
And for those of our listeners who are listening that might be landowners, what are
Yep.
some of the things that you can do to conserve and protect those waterways? Even if you're maybe not necessarily working with the conservation groups, what are some of the things at ranchers' disposal, like you said, to fence off the riparian areas, things like that?
Yeah, obviously I'm not the expert on that. But the fencing is a big thing. Adding willows is a huge thing. Keeping livestock away in other means, whether, because fence is not cheap. And so figuring out other ways to keep livestock out of the waterway's path. Obviously, ranchers need to feed and water their cattle in different ways. And so we do understand, but maybe limiting their access throughout their entire watershed does make a huge difference. But again, that's why we partner with different organizations that know way more than I do when it comes to actual best conservation practices. And that's part of the partnership with Rarewaters, because we do have those relationships.
That's huge. That's what we always say too. We're like, we're not lawyers, we're not engineers, but we will connect you with the right people.
There is people that are way smarter than I am, and I am happy to introduce you to those people.
That's great. I'd love to go. Okay, let's say I'm a landowner, and I've listened to this podcast. I'm like, this is for me. I want to generate income. I want to protect my river. What is the process as a landowner if they want to go through this and partner with Rarewaters and have this as a viable income generator for them?
Yeah, so there's a couple different ways. Number one would be hopping onto our website, rarewaters.com, and we have an individual landowner page where landowners can fill out a form and express interest. And then a member of our team would follow up, or they're welcome to email me directly, Andy@rarewaters.com, and then we'll start that conversation. See if it's a good fit, see if the property is checking the boxes that we have internally. Because even though if it's a half mile of access, but that half mile access is crossed with other people's access, it makes it really difficult for an angler experience to be a good one on the water. And ultimately, we want to make sure that the anglers are having a great experience on the water for the day, because otherwise, it could be a bad review for the property. That's another fact from the angler perspective, is all of our properties are reviewed by the anglers. And so they're on like a 5-star rating. So other anglers can see what they're getting into on a certain property and be like, we've also kind of turned it into somewhat of a community, because now we've got anglers that'll post their review of the property, but they're also calling out what bugs may be effective on that property. We've done our best as anglers that work at Rarewaters to communicate that, but we're not on every property every day of the week. And so we can't ultimately understand every single nuance of each individual property. So the community as a whole has said, oh, well, let me give my 2 cents and I'll help my fellow angler, which has been pretty awesome.
Yeah. I mean, we've always found data is king. So the fact that you're creating this platform where anglers can create that data center for other anglers, that's huge and not very accessible in a lot of locations across the West when it comes to rivers. So that's really neat too.
Yeah. And on the angler perspective, on these properties, when we do partner, we do call out USGS flow gauges when applicable. So an angler knows what they're going to be getting themselves into. A huge thing that we just implemented last year was actually flying drones over all the watersheds that we're partnered with. Yeah, I mean, still photos are awesome, but they don't do a property justice a lot of times for an angler to really understand what they're stepping into. And so we fly the drones over the property. We get them at water level. We take still photos from the drone, and then we share that with anglers. So you can, from an angler perspective, you can really know before you go, as it were.
I have a question as we're talking from a perspective of access. So public versus private fishing access thing has always been kind of this point of contention. But
Sure.
how do anglers access these private lands? Is it like a certain road that they have to go on? Do
Yeah.
they, I just
Yes.
was wondering how that all works.
Yeah. So we work, part of the onboarding process with a landowner is we determine what roads an angler can and cannot drive on, where they can and cannot go, where a fence may be, where a fence may not be, where they can park, where they can camp. If there's active cattle in a certain area of a property versus not. And so we call all that out on a map that every angler receives 2 to 3 days prior to their visit to a particular property. And then we
Love
also
that.
relay that. I would say currently we've got about 75% of our properties that do have signage placed on them, identifying those markers that are GPS located on the maps that they'd received prior to visiting a property.
That's great. I mean, that's stuff that you wouldn't get on public lands, that amount of detail.
No, and we try really hard because we're guests ultimately on these landowners' properties, and so we want to make sure that we act as such. You're not just going to walk in somebody's back door when you're not welcome to, and so by saying, "Hey, we're welcome to come in these areas," that the landowners already agreed to, it just makes both the landowner experience and the angler experience so much better ultimately.
And what kind of income can be generated? How much do some of these trips sometimes cost? I know it probably ranges
Yeah.
from ranch to ranch, but I would
Yeah,
love to know
no,
kind of what
no,
that looks
no,
like.
100%. It absolutely ranges from ranch to ranch, but put it in dollars and cents is ultimately kind of hard. But we've got landowners that are paying their taxes for their property, and now they don't have to think about it anymore. And then we've got
That's huge.
landowners that now have the availability to, especially on these multi-general ranches, now have the ability to send their kid to college. That kind of revenue.
Oh, love it.
And so the tax thing is huge for a lot of our landowner partners, or ultimately it could pay for a ranch hand on a property as well. And so, obviously, based like you said, it is based on a lot of different things. But we've got landowners that are seeing nearly six figures to landowners that are right around 5 grand a year for access. It all comes down to multiple factors, obviously, and those I'd be happy to discuss with a landowner in detail.
I
Yeah.
love to hear that because we get calls all the time, Andy, about, okay, I just purchased this ranch. Maybe you're an absentee landowner and you're like, I don't know how. The first thing about managing, how do I just generate a little bit of income so that I could get a manager? I could kind of
Yeah.
start implementing some operational ideas. So the fact that you guys have created this one way of generating income is huge,
Yeah.
especially if, obviously, if you have water going through your
Yeah, yeah,
property.
the water's a big thing for us. So yeah, yeah, definitely need the water. But another part of Rarewaters as well that landowners on the revenue side of things that adds to that revenue stream income is because some of these ranches and lands are so large. We have found that adding camping, boondock camping, to some of the listings has really benefited a landowner because now you go from a single day rod fee or access fee for an angler to now a multi-day access fee for an angler to come on, stay the night, fish multiple days. Makes a big difference. You can't just book the camping without booking the fishing, though. So fishing from the Rare Waters perspective is always first. The camping or potential lodging, as we're expanding, is secondary. Yep.
Okay. So for those listening, they might start to think, okay, what's the difference between kind of rare waters and your traditional outfitting? Because there's a
Yeah.
lot of those kind of organizations too. Again, a lot of them focus on just a regional area, so I know that's one of the big changes. But what is kind of the difference between those type of operations if I were a rancher and deciding between the two?
Rare Waters was founded really for the DIY angler. So the angler that knows how to fish, that wants to just get away from the crowds. So whereas guiding traditionally is basically hand holding of an angler onto different properties, right, or different watersheds, and can ultimately be an instructional thing as well. But guides are really there as kind of a hand holder for anglers when they're fishing. guiding is a huge part of the fly fishing industry, and Rarewaters has absolutely recognized that. And we're in the process of basically making a a la carte add-on to your experience on different properties that we're partnering with. Because, ultimately we want to get more ankles in the water. We want to have anglers experience more areas. And there is some landowners that were like, you know what, we just want guides. We feel that they're consistent on the property. I don't have to guess kind of thing of who's coming and who's not coming. But that's something that we're definitely working on right now to add on. But the ultimate reason for rare waters anglers to access land is because they already know what they're doing. They don't necessarily need a guide.
That's like your avatar. Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
yeah,
that makes a lot of sense.
yeah, yeah. Because
Those are the people you guys want to work with. And I mean, it makes sense. It's like, you understand how to protect these waters. You care about that. You know what you're doing. You're going to be conscientious of like the landowner too.
yeah,
It sounds like a good group of people.
and another side on that for the kind of take the nerves away from a landowner, we do partner with them on generating rules for every property that we partner with, and we give a blanket plate rule list to them to see what other landowners have done as a generalization. But ultimately, it's your land. You can tell us what anybody can and cannot do on your property. Again, like I said earlier, we
Yeah.
are guests on these properties. Our anglers are guests on these properties, and every angler is required to sign an angler release form acknowledging those rules set in place by the landowner.
That's sweet. I love that. Another question I had, just like as we were
Yeah,
talking about some of this stuff, it seems like there's a lot of resources to landowners. Are a lot of landowners kind of maybe learning from one another too? The people that have signed up with Rarewaters about, okay, I did this type of riparian corridor repair. Maybe you could do this too, or something like that, where it's this network.
so we are working towards that
Okay.
on that side of thing. We are a small business, and there's only so many shiny balls that we can chase. um,
Yeah.
and
Fair.
but we do have a landowner specific newsletter that we share with all our landowner partners to keep them informed on things that Rare Waters is doing, and ultimately we would like to share what other landowners are doing on their properties as well.
I love what you guys are doing. I love your mission. And I think when people think of conservation, they think of like land trusts and land, conservation easements and those things. But you really do need to take care of the riparian areas if
Yeah.
anything is to be protected, because it's the most important part.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing that you kind of brought up there that a lot of landowner partners don't realize is on the conservation easement that you just brought up. We we are not coming out in and adjusting that easement because anglers are just walking in by foot. We're not looking to change the environment. If anything, ultimately part of that is to improve the habitat as a whole. And so we've got landowners that question whether if they have a conservation, if they can even partner with Rare Waters in the first place. And ultimately, the answer is yes, that you can absolutely partner with Rare Waters, even if you have a conservation easement on your property.
That's a great thing to know. Is this considered, as I think about it, is this like a commercial use when it comes to the conservation easement and commercial? Maybe this is something I need to ask a conservation easement person, but
Yeah.
is this against, like to your point, does this go against any of that kind of like non-commercial use?
From what we have been told from the people that know more than us, our attorneys know we do not
Okay.
take away from that.
Okay, perfect. And then in general, I would love to know, because this is really exciting. We haven't really heard about this type of income generator popping up yet. So
Yeah.
I would just love to know, what is the 10-year goal of Rare Waters? Where do you guys see this headed as there's more and more pressure on
Yeah.
public waters and systems?
Yeah. So, I mean, currently we're sitting just shy of 100 properties that we're partnered with throughout the Western US. Ultimately, the goal is to expand past the Western US to the entire US and to be partnered with over 1,000 properties by that time. So that ultimately is the goal. I mean, again, like I said earlier, shiny balls. I mean, we've got people from other countries asking us to implement this within their countries. We've got lots of shiny balls to chase, but the ultimate goal right now for the next 10 years is domestic and 1,000 property partners.
Okay. And how do you handle, I know, Montana's fishing laws are different than Colorado and Wyoming. Is that kind of a part of
Yeah.
what you get as an angler when you're thinking of
Yeah,
fishing some of these
absolutely.
places?
So like Montana and Idaho specifically, they are both what's considered a high water mark state. So anglers technically have access to all the waterways within those states to the high water mark on the stream bank. Most of the anglers that use the Rarewaters platform either don't have the energy or don't have the physical ability to walk, say, 3, 4 miles up a watershed. So in those states, the easiest way to kind of describe that is more of a trespass fee. And we traditionally partner with larger landowners in those states where we're not taking away from the public access through those water saves, but really adding to the experience of a particular angler group.
Okay, got it. Because I know I've only fished in Colorado and Wyoming,
Yeah,
which are very similar. So,
yeah,
but I
yeah.
know there's a little bit of difference between all of those.
Yeah, and we before entering into any state, any place like that, we obviously do our research and understand the laws that are there, and so we do our best to follow those for sure.
Awesome. And if I were a landowner and I'm listening to this, do you guys have any testimonials or landowners that are willing to talk about their experience with Rare Waters?
Oh, absolutely, and actually right now, because that has been a question from a lot of landowners, is that is in the process of getting put onto our landowner specific landing page. We've got multiple landowners that want to share their stories and their experiences with Rare Waters and how we conduct business.
Perfect. And is there any region in particular that you guys maybe don't have a partnership with that you would love to have a partnership with? For those listening who are like, oh, I have Rare Water in this county or something like that.
Yeah, so I mean, right now the focus is within a 3-hour drive of the Denver metro area. That is the
Cool.
ultimate focus for about the next through about the end of the year at the moment. But if a landowner reaches out to us from outside that area, we would love to at least start the conversation to get the ball rolling. But our primary focus right now is 3 hours from Denver.
Perfect. Well, that's where a lot of the people are who are
Yeah,
needing that
it,
public land access.
it is, and kind of a fun thing from the landowner perspective. We've got landowners that have reached out to us before and thought that they could do it on their own, but there's a lot of things that Rare Waters does beyond just listing a landowner's property on our website. We actively engage the angling community. We have grassroots campaigns that we conduct monthly. We do approximately 3 events a month, reaching out to the angling community, whether it's going to a local fly shop that's partnered with us and hosting a little grill out there to tell about the landowner's properties, or we've got Trout Fest that Trouts Unlimited is putting on down at Coors Field on the 29th of June this month, and getting out in front of the angling community to share these properties to get more ankles in the waters on the properties that we have partnered with. So we're actively pursuing an angler where, honestly, most landowners don't have the time or the
Right.
pocketbook to be able to reach out to those angling communities.
Especially the multi-generational. They've got a lot of other things to worry about. So it's nice to have someone helping with that piece.
No, and nailing down their time is really difficult as well. I try to be as quick and thorough as I can and be respectful of their time because I know that what is on their plate. I mean, personally, I'm from the Pacific Northwest and I didn't grow up on a ranch, but within the last year and a half of working with landowners, my respect has grown immensely. My understanding of what they actually go into is a big deal. I think that actually now understand and can see for myself what these landowners, especially multi-generational landowners, have to go through.
Yeah. No, they're the big conservationists I know. So it's
Yeah,
neat to have a tool for these guys so that they can continue protecting these landscapes, but have the income to help with some of that. So I think this is a great idea. And I know one of our past clients has partnered with you guys in the past and has had an incredible experience. So for those listening who maybe are considering buying a ranch, who maybe just purchased a ranch, they all have river, how can landowners sign up Do they contact you directly, or is it better to go through the website?
Yeah, no, I mean, easy to go directly through me. Again, Andy at rarewaters.com. It's an easy way. Provide me with your phone number. I'm great at email, but I prefer a conversation. And
Yeah.
I do travel, so I am happy to come to a landowner on the time that they are available. Because I really believe meeting in person and shaking somebody's hand builds a level of trust. Because honestly, your landowners don't know Rarewaters. You barely know Rarewaters. You're just getting to know us. And building that relationship and building that trust is a big deal to Rarewaters, because like I said earlier, we are guests on these landowners' properties, and I want your first experience with Rarewaters to be the best. And so I try my hardest to start off on the right foot with all our landowner partners.
And I can attest, Andy is very good at responding to emails and getting back to us. So don't worry about the communication piece. Well, thank you, Andy, so much for coming on. For those listening who want to learn a little bit more, if you're an angler or if you're a landowner, rarewaters.com, and that's RARE waters.com, or reach out to Andy, like he gave earlier, his email. This is a great opportunity. As more and more people move to the West, there's a lot of pressure on a lot of these different riparian areas. So things like this really do improve kind of the fisheries that we've grown to love. So thank you so much, Andy, for taking the time, and for Rarewaters for doing what you guys are doing.
Yeah, Haley, thank you so much for letting us kind of toot our own horn, as it were. Super excited to share with not only anglers, but the landowners as a whole. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. See you guys next time. Thanks for joining us today. To learn more about the ranch real estate market or our ranch marketing process, make sure to subscribe to our newsletter on our website at merranchgroup.com, or give us a call at 303-623-4545. See you next time.